there is no new administration policy with respect to the border wall. From day one, this administration has made clear that a border wall is not the answer. The construction project reported today was appropriated, funded during the prior administration in 2019, and the law requires the government to use these funds for this purpose. We have repeatedly asked Congress to rescind this money, but it has not done so, and we are compelled to follow the law.
That is Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas saying the Biden administration is still against border walls, even though he just lifted 26 laws to build one.
We're talking to a rancher with a pile of materials for the project just sitting on his land. He wants, of course, Biden to finally use it. But first, Brooke Sigmund has more on the mixed signals coming out of the White House. Hey, Brooke.
Yeah, guys, that's right. President Biden now says Congress shoulders the blame for reconstruction of former President Trump's border wall. Listen to this.
I'll answer one question on the border wall. The border wall, the money was appropriated for the border wall. I tried to get them to reappropriate, to redirect that money. They didn't. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what it was appropriated. I can't stop that.
Do you believe the border wall works?
No.
And now his own party is turning on him. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leading the progressive pushback, saying, quote, the Biden administration was not required to expand construction of the border wall, and they certainly were not required to waive several environmental laws to expedite the building. The president needs to take responsibility for this decision and reverse the course. But the White House is doubling down, saying the change really isn't their fault. Listen.
He said there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. So something changed. What?
You want us to break the law? Is that what you want? You want us to not comply with the law? You want us to not be in administrations that follow the rule of law?
You guys do this all the time. The student loans, the student loan forgiveness program, you went to court to fight for that. If this is such a problem, building 20 miles of wall, why not just go to court?
We went to Congress.
Yeah, guys, so you'll remember on his first day in office, Biden issued an executive order to halt all border wall construction. He called the border security measure a, quote, waste of money and, quote, not a serious policy solution. Biden's order halted 173 miles of border construction after Trump left office. And in another stunning reversal, the Biden administration says it will resume deporting Venezuelan migrants, announcing last month that they would give them temporary protected status. Guys.
They are all over the map. All right,
Yeah.
Brooke, thank you so much. Let's bring in New Mexico rancher Russell Johnson. And Russell, this issue, of course, hits so close to home for you because you got that pile of border material sitting on your property. So what do you think of this back and forth yesterday where the president said that he's going to build 20 miles of border wall in South Texas, but only because his hands are tied, he still does not think that walls work?
Good morning, Carly, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show. I find it funny that this administration is all of a sudden worried about following the rule of law here in this scenario. But what's frustrating to me is I live in New Mexico, which falls under Border Patrol's El Paso sector. And fiscal year 2023, El Paso sector had over 389,000 encounters on the southwest border here. And RGV had 245,000, which, according to this administration and Secretary Mayorkas, triggered an acute need for a border wall. What does 389,000 crossings in El Paso sector mean? Does that classify as some kind of emergency? That's what's frustrating to me is I'm sitting here in New Mexico with a wide open border, yet 20 miles of walls being disputed down in Texas.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. And to follow up on what Carly said, sort of the administration being all over the place, I have a contrarian view on this. To me, this looks like Joe Biden and the administration is trying to convince the voters that, hey, we're doing something on the border. They see their poll numbers plummeting. They see the American people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, don't want this influx that's happening in your community and in Texas and throughout the southern border. My problem with this, though, if they win re-election, which would happen 13 months from now, my gut tells me that the border wall is going to stop and the influx is going to be able to resume once again, and people like you are just going to, get the shaft once again. Do you share my view on that?
I sure do. It's very frustrating for us down here on the border because our safety and security hinges on whoever's in power in the White House. And we feel like just political pawns down here that nobody really cares about when it comes down to it. And it's very frustrating for all of us living down here because none of it's being taken seriously, particularly by this administration.
Yeah, totally. And it seems like it's only this 20-mile stretch is being built now that it's becoming an issue in the major cities. How do you feel about that? And also, you do really bring up a good point about them fighting over just this tiny little portion that they're going to build in South Texas when it's wide open space where you are. So tell us about what's going on in your backyard. How often are you seeing border crossers, and how has it impacted you?
So with the 3/4 mile gap that we have on our ranch right now, the summer months kind of slowed things down because we were seeing weeks well over 100 degrees. And so it kind of slowed things down, but we're starting to cool off. So we're starting to see a little increase in foot traffic. But if you start closing off borders in just small sections, but you don't seal off the entire border, where do you think that traffic's going to go? So if they start building 20 miles in Texas, they're just going to keep moving to those paths of least resistance.
Totally.
And so that's what's kind of ironic is you're going to build 20 miles and you really think that's going to do anything. Yeah. So like you say, it's purely a political move to make it seem like they're trying to do something and they care about the situation when in reality it's just pure politics.
Wait, and Russell, I was also reading that your dad and uncle had their pickup truck stolen at gunpoint at one point. You've also had cattle stolen as well?
We have. My family's been down here in this area for over 100 years. I mean, we've seen just about anything imaginable that can happen. The pickup being stolen, that was in the 90s. Cattle stolen, that's been in the 90s, early 2000s. We've seen the whole gamut of what could happen down here on the border, and it's all been horrible things.
Looking at the video once again, let's re-rack that. I thought it was going to be like a couple fences. Russell, there is a lot of material. Do you have any guesstimate how much money our federal government is wasting keeping these border materials on your land? What are we looking at here?
I'd venture to say, I mean, it's millions of dollars just in our area alone. And there's yards like this all up and down the southern border, not just in our area.
That's so much wasted money.
Just not only did the contracts get canceled, but now contractors are being paid to house this material that was already allocated. It's ready to go, and it's just sitting out here rusting.
If you're a taxpayer,
so it's very frustrating.
You're looking at this video. You see your taxpayer dollars going to pay for migrants to stay $500 a night in hotels.
Such a good
you look
point.
at what happened in Afghanistan, billions upon billions of dollars. Like, here you go, enemy, take this.
Yeah.
As a taxpayer, you just have your blood boil, and you just think to yourself,
totally.
What?
Is that border material still usable at this point?
Oh, yes. This material that was brought in here is U.S. made steel. It was brand new when it came in. I mean, it's perfect, ready to go.
Somebody
all we need to do is install it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Russell, what a wild turn of events when it comes to the administration's stance on if border walls work or not. But thank you for joining us this morning and telling your story. It's an interesting one. We appreciate it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.